I'm going to ask you each to tell me who you are and whether you think there is a place for in-play racing. And I'm hoping you're going to say yes, otherwise it'll be a short panel. So, Peter, do you want?
Okay, that was working, yeah. So Peter Woodfine, Commercial Director for Total Performance Data. We provide GPS tracking technology for racehorses around the world. At the moment, we're tracking in the UK on the arena racing tracks, so the 16 arc tracks. And obviously our data we are producing for analytics and also for powering in running trading algorithms. So absolutely from my standpoint, we believe that there's a big future in this as a product.
Paul Witten, SIS. SIS has been really part of the fabric of horse racing as an industry for 30 years, putting pictures and data principally into betting shops, but now increasingly online. Yes, we also believe there's a future for in-running in horse racing, and we've been investing both in the capture technology, similar to Peter, but also in what happens afterwards, and maybe we'll touch on that a bit later. But yeah, there's definitely a space for this.
Hello, Jacob Lopez. I'm CEO of Optima. We are a worldwide platform supplier with a big presence in the UK and Ireland. And we think that there is definitely a place for the in-play horse racing betting, and probably we will see that technology today is more supportive of this sort of products, and will help also in increasing the actual engagement with the user, which I think is today what is limiting more this kind of product to be appealing to the end customer.
Hi, I'm Marmion. I'm Trading Director at Betstars. I'm also a very keen read mug horse racing punter. And I think I've been brought for the contrarian view. I don't share the guys' belief that in-play and horse racing is going to revolutionise what's a pretty stale marketplace. But then I didn't think cash out would work, so what do I know?
Or in play, I seem to remember.
Or in play, yeah.
So maybe let's start right at the beginning of the story, because at some point someone's generating some odds for a bookmaker to place bets on. So maybe the panelists can tell me, I know you're involved in different ways, how are these live betting markets being generated? Because there's a few different ways, and maybe some opinion on what works and what doesn't work. And you've all got quite different approaches, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, from our standpoint, we're very much a data company, so we're providing the data for how the operators want to use it. So the feedback we're getting is there's some operators that believe they can interpret the data themselves, so we're providing a direct feed, or there is also the market where an actual product is being delivered where we would partner with a third party and the sort of actual pricing data is serviced into the bookmakers, which is automated and can be serviced on. And I think those are the sort of two main areas that we're working in. Either it's productized or we're just supplying the data and it's for the individuals to decide how they use it.
Our SIS, you're doing something slightly different. Yeah.
Well, I think we're doing something similar, but a bit more. So Peter's business has a GPS capture technology on racecourse. We have a capture technology on racecourse, which is similar. I'm actually not that concerned about what the physical hardware is that goes onto a horse or into saddlecloth. There's at least 10 different competing products that can do that kind of thing. The real challenge about getting data from the racecourse, from my perspective, is it's quite a hostile environment. Every track is different. You've got dips, you've got bends, you've got people, and then the horses themselves are quite hostile. They're very sweaty. They move very quickly. So getting that capture piece right is incredibly important, because that's the basis for what we're talking about. But the hardware itself is not the unique thing. For me, the most important thing about the raw data that comes through is its accuracy and its timeliness. You need to have a sort of consolidated approach. If you look at somebody like Bet365, they have live data, they have video, and they have visualizations, and they have odds. And that's 4 different things that effectively need to be in sync with each other. And if their data gets out of sync with their pictures or vice versa, it's a really poor customer experience. So we're trying to work through the chain both at the capture end, and we have a contract across all of Irish horse racing, so those 20-odd tracks, through into the creation of the algorithms themselves, one, to create raw feeds, and two, to create a pricing algorithm, and we have a trading team. So I'm sure come on to how this is going to work, but we also have a trading team, and then we also distribute data to all the customers, typically the high street that you'll know in the UK, but dozens of international online companies as well. So from our perspective, we're looking at the whole value chain all the way through, and ultimately what's the product at the end of it that is going to entice somebody to make a bet.
We'll talk about product in a little bit, but so how are Optima solving this problem?
So basically, Witten is two main different challenges to sort out. One is the actual data capturing and the actual processing of the data, also the trading algorithms, and definitely the human intervention is required because there are so many variables in a horse track, which may happen from the ground, from the state of the horse, etc. All that can be controlled, but you need people in the ground that will verify, because then it could be very, very confusing for the end user. That's one part of it, and that technology will help a lot, and is helping now much more than it was before, with the availability of communications, the availability of hardware that allow to track more accurately all those parameters. But it's also, and maybe more important, we probably talk about more that later, is user experience. And what happened when the broadcasting signal comes from satellite is 7-8 seconds delay. And when you have to mix that with the data and the pricing algorithms that are almost in real time today. Yeah. So we process all these data in real time. Our partners and customers have in their system all that data in real time. Algorithms work in real time as well, but the user experience is not that there. So basically, an additional challenge is that depending in which region, country in the world you are, especially in the UK, maybe the resources required in order to sort out these problems are not yet there. And the bandwidth, for example, is quite expensive. And if you try to provide this product to actual retail bookmakers, the more brick and mortar bookmakers, which is a big part of the horse racing business, rightly doesn't work. And we have to work hard in order to provide solutions for all those. And we from Optima have today products that really will sort out these challenges, and we will be talking about that.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to stop you before you answer all my other questions. So. So these guys are all trying to sell different solutions to you. And in fact, there's some others out there. So 365 are doing it slightly differently, and Betfair kind of wisdom of the crowd generating it. You know, where's the problem here?
So I guess that's the point. We've got three guys here whose business is to sell this data. In actual fact, for me, 90% of horse racing in-play betting will be placed by people who've missed the off, who've been waiting for a bet to settle, or whose horse has fallen. I don't need a pricing algorithm to do that. I can keep the pre-match prices open, the pre-game prices open. I don't need the data to justify these prices. 90% of the bets will be done in the first couple of seconds. I'm sure 100% of the profitable bets will be done early on. Horse racing changes too dynamically in the closing stages of a race to be modelled effectively. I've absolutely no doubt about that. You know, football match will decay as it should decay. A tennis match will model as it should model. That doesn't happen in a horse racing because of the factors involved.
But why can't you use data to model that?
Because it's not, you can use the data, but you can't model it quick enough because it changes so rapidly. So the opportunity for someone to see a price and get an opportunity to place a bet with a time delay on pictures that they're 10 seconds behind on, it just doesn't work for me. So is there a place for it? Yeah, I'm sure there is. But really, it's in the early stages of races where I'm probably happy enough to lay my pre-race prices anyway.
So let's get on to that next bit. So the Betfair market, for example, exists. And maybe you're arguing that that's just for a specific group of punters, for a hardcore of punters.
I think it's for two sets of punters. It's for a set of people who operate either with live data on the track or with access to quicker pictures than everybody else, and it's for unfortunate mug punters who sit at home and think the 7-1 they're getting about a horse is good value because they're watching it in real time, when in actual fact he's made a bad mistake at the next fence. So I think you've got two distinct group of punters. And I think what's happening on course, particularly with if you look at the liquidity on Betfair now on live racing, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller as these guys are getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And in effect what you have is a group of professional punters betting against each other using very, very live pictures, and a handful of unfortunates who think they're playing on a level playing field. So I guess that is an advantage, because if I'm playing against a firm, at least I know I'm playing against somebody with a straight bat. So I get that.
So I think that's where technology has to sort out the challenge. As I said before, is because the actual user experience is not quite right. You cannot see value in those, but I can see where horse racing will be much more attractive for also the young people that today is not that attracted by the horse racing. We just start providing like live data, and they can see in real time, for example, what's the state of a horse which is running. You see how it's getting tired and tired and tired, how the price is changing in real time. For me, it's really, really exciting. Now, providing all that technology, working together with the end-to-end user experience is what really I think is going to change this for the next few years. And we are probably in the very early stages. And some very good friends and partners of mine from the UK industry were telling me this has been attempted for the last 5 years. And if we don't change where the main challenge is, which is the user experience, it's going to continue like that. It's not about trading algorithms. There are trading algorithms with the actual input from the traders that really will be quite rightly better than the exchange price, because exchange price is so small liquidity sometimes that you cannot take it as a reference. So I think that all working together, each of us in the different part of the chain, will really have a new horse racing product there that will really attract younger, and I think that's very important for the industry.
I get the impression that we're trying to push a square peg into a round hole with a lot of this. You know, in-play has exploded within sport, but it works for a football match. It's 90 minutes. We want people to be engaged more than just on the outright result. So we ask them to bet on next corner. We ask them to bet on next throw-in. We ask them to bet on things that happen in a 60-second or a 2-minute window. Horse racing already has that. You know, if you look at a horse meeting as a football match rather than a horse race, we already have those 7 or 8 instances of betting opportunities. We have it over 4 meetings a day, so we've 32 races. We have a race going off every 2 minutes. I don't think we need to push that square peg into a round hole and try and encourage them to bet within that race as well.
But this is a declining sport on some levels. So the product that's there is appealing less and less.
I don't think that this will suddenly be the panacea of all ills, though. I think racing is a declining sport, and because of the amount of competition that's there elsewhere. And I think, you look at the demographic on the race courses. It's not a young people sport anymore. It's an older person sport. It isn't something that appeals to the 20-somethings. You know, I own a number of horses with a number of mates of mine. We're all in our 40s. We're the youngest people in the racetrack when we go. The only time you ever get younger people there is when you've got Bewitched playing afterwards. That's showing my age now, Bewitched.
That is, yeah. But look, I don't know if you've seen any of the other panels, but some of the panels through this track have been talking about the coming together of the industry and the sport and trying to innovate. And, you know, we heard about the tote innovations. Some of the innovations that we've been hearing about are practical solutions to issues about conventional betting on horse racing. Number of runners in a field, price of the favourite, that kind of stuff. All valuable, but they're not going to be game changers. And they might halt the decline, show modest growth, help with racing's finances and help the bookmakers. But I can't see any of those things being a breakthrough that will attract a younger audience, that will meaningfully grow turnover and revenues on horse racing. Now, your skepticism, if I put it that way, is well understood. Okay, I hear this all the time from traders, from bookmakers, from people who've been around for a long time. But if you don't try, you don't know. And I think the key at the moment is this is the betting behavior that has worked in almost every other sport. You point out the dynamics and they are different. But racing can do this. And if it's data-driven and punters believe they're getting a fair crack, now that might mean synchronizing pictures and data, for example. It sounds very simple, is actually very complicated. But if you can get a product in front of a customer that excites them, it will attract a younger audience as well. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
I think there's another point as well on back to the sort of Betfair issue with the latency is a key point here. So at the moment, yes, you're absolutely right. There's in-running trading on Betfair. Liquidity's down in the exchange because you've got a load of professionals who are on course getting that in real time. And an average punter, all they can do is bet against that market from a highly delayed picture. The latency, so our data is coming through at between 30 and 50 milliseconds off course. And that massively levels the playing field in that scenario. You can have remote punters, okay, worldwide, offshore, they're going to be a bit slower than that, but it's still less than a second. So that really levels that playing field in going against those head-to-head markets.
As long as I can take that data and convert it reasonably into a price, and still have time to go and place a bet based on that, because within a football match, 30 seconds is insignificant, yeah? Within a horse race, 2 seconds is significant. I think, look, don't get me wrong, I would love this to work. You know, I'm a horse racing fan absolutely to my core, and I would love it to be the dominant part of our business. But I'm afraid the fact of the matter is it isn't. So look, I believe we should be looking to try and innovate, and we should be trying to drive it forward. And you look at things like the Scoop 6 that has, you know, changed the number of people that play the game and how they play it on a Saturday. But I don't see this as a game changer.
Because I'm convinced that there's a market in the casual segment. You know, the way we're building our products are all kind of fun and entertaining and instant betting, exactly as you say the problems are. That's, you know, those are the core problems we're solving. But maybe it's worth talking to the panel here, because what is the opportunity here then? What does the product look like? What, you know, is it a thing about new markets? Is it about the way we portray the product to the user? Because Ian's kind of saying that, you know, this isn't going to work because current horse racing isn't fit for that. So what is the new product then? Because presumably we have to invent something here.
I think that new products, we have to reverse engineer this. So basically, what the customer sees in the picture today needs to change. The customer has to be given a level of interactivity that will work in real time. And that then will lead the customer to be wanting to bet on something that's going to happen based on his own perception of what is going on in real time. If we don't get that sorted, then undoubtedly will happen what you're saying. Really, it's nothing new for the customer there, for the punter there, to really be attracted to bet on something in real time. If you see most of the youngers today, what they do with the esports and with others, what they really love is to know more about what's happening that you can just see with just pictures. So you have to overlap data. You have to make that data interactive. And once we sort this out, obviously, it means that data is in real time. And it means that the reactions of the customers in real time to those perceptions will be ending up in placing bets, and that will be the profit for the operators as well. So that more is for Paul probably to say how those broadcasters are going to be changing what data is going to be available for operators then to offer a product and design a product around that. And it's very important that it's not standard products. It is very important that each operator will be able to define how they want to lay out that user experience and will be able to differentiate. Otherwise, it will be a commodity rather than the differentiator. And I think that Paul then can say it. You were going to say something, no?
Well, I was going to pick a couple of examples that have sort of been referenced already. I completely agree. The data is just the enabler for product innovation. And different people, different companies will interpret that data in different ways and make different decisions about what to do with it. Take an example that you mentioned earlier, Ian, cash out. Cash out in sports has been a massive success. Not only is it a good customer experience because it allows the customer to hedge their position effectively, it's been a massive success for bookmakers because it's an incredibly profitable product. It's a great customer experience and it's profitable. That's the perfect combination. So I was talking yesterday with the guys from Sportsbet in Australia, which is a paddy power business. And even without the real-time data that we're talking about here for in-running horse racing, they're about to launch a product called The Fold. This is cash out for horse racing in real time. But they're not using data to drive it. They're using it as a marketing tool and as a customer experience tool. Effectively, the way it's going to work is, and I've seen this in action, a customer will be given one chance, one token every day to cash out a horse racing bet in running at any point. And they get their money back, they get the stake back as cash back into their account. During testing, and I've checked, they don't mind me saying this, during testing, it's polled incredibly highly as innovative, exciting, the kind of thing that I want to have as a customer. It's also profitable. The money's back in the account, they spend it on the next race. So it's the same concept, it's the same principle. Now that doesn't need the data that we've been talking about for in-running, but it's a perfect in-running horse racing product. If that could be expanded and you could have that, instead of the blunt tool of get your stake back, if you could have genuine cash out, or you could have genuine double my bet during running, I can see all kinds of opportunities here. And the challenge is going to be for the operators to innovate, knowing what customer demand looks like. Jacob, you're right. The younger audience wants things now. They're not coming into horse racing betting because horse racing betting is complicated. It requires you, if you want to have a chance to win, to study form, or take pot luck. So people bet when they're at the races because it's a bit of fun. They're not betting on racing in betting shops and online because it's more complicated than everything else. Well, let's try and find a way to use this data to innovate in running and make products that appeal to that audience. Now, it won't happen overnight, and I get that. This is going to sound insulting, it's not meant to be. The old school traders, the people who've grown up through horse racing and are enmeshed in it, there's a kind of split of opinion in the people I talk to. Some people are really excited by the opportunities this will bring, and others are a bit more skeptical, a bit more cynical. And I think that's just because it's unproven. But how are we going to try? How are we going to prove it? That's the key thing. I think Sportsbet in Australia are doing a great job with a relatively simple product innovation, and I'm sure it's going to be a flying success.
So the original question was kind of...
Sorry.
No, it was really interesting, but I also wanted your view, because the original question was kind of how's the product actually going to look? So are you working at SIS on kind of differentiating the product in a new way, or are you just taking the existing kind of racing and just applying a in-place skin, as it were?
Well, at the moment, we're experimenting. We're coming up with a number of different ideas, different bet types, principally. So can you back out of your position, as Sportsbet are doing? Can you pre-match back odds against evens, derivatives and distances? If you've got the real-time data and you can see that the horse you've bet on has started to slow down, do you cash out? Do you double up? Do you place a bet on the horse that's about to go past it? Those are the sort of things that we're working on. The visual representation of that is going to be different by customer, clearly. I think our place in this market, in this value chain, is to come up with ideas and to work with operators. Those are the guys who know their customers best of all, and they know what their strategy is for acquiring new types of customers. So it's a partnership approach. You know, we're providing the raw materials and a lot of ideas, but they know their customers. So I think it's a cliche, but the most effective way to work is in partnership, and that I think is what we've got to get to.
Peter, do you see your customers doing different things with the data and different product ways to productize?
Yeah, I mean, I think the win-only market is probably where this will start, but I think the excitement comes in the derivative markets. I certainly agree with Paul, though, in the fact that it's not really for us to dictate what the product's going to be to the operators, because they all have slightly different customer bases as well. So, I mean, we ran, for example, as a bit of a novelty with Sky Bet at the Windsor Sprints. We did some derivative markets there on fastest furlong and the top speed of the horse. And our kind of next steps there is to do some customer research to see what kind of bets the Sky Bet customer would like to see. So I agree. I think it's a collaborative approach and a partnership. But I think it's derivative markets where this is going to get exciting. I think the win only is one thing, but that's quite a basic iteration. But it's when we start, just betting fastest to first furlong, leader at that market, wherever we go, and match betting. I think that's where it gets exciting.
So excited.
No, and I think the derivative market is where it's going to be exciting, is another way of saying is we haven't got a clue what's going to work here. So things like the fastest furlong wouldn't be allowed in any jurisdiction. It's entirely corruptible. So I put a seven pound claimer up, say go as fast as you can for the first furlong. Don't worry if you finish last, and I get dropped £3 as well. It's it's the equivalent of spot fixing in cricket. It wouldn't be allowed. Derivative markets haven't worked pre-event in horse racing. Match bets command less than 1% of the turnover. The only thing that's really worked is place-only betting. All the maybe betting without a little bit. None of these things are revolutionary. None of these things are guys who are selling data trying to justify a product. And it simply isn't proven that it's going to work. The one exception I'll make to that is I think cash out is a big plus, because there's no justification really for cash out pre-event on a horse racing single. So where we target cash out to customers is where they've backed an opinion, they've backed Manchester United to win, they've gone 1-0 up, they now can monetize having their opinion right. Within a horse racing single, you don't have that now. The only people that benefit from horse racing singles in cash out are people which know which way the market is going. They're not the customers that any of us are trying to attract from a recreational perspective. But I think to be able to have a bet on horse racing and at some point during the race be able to cash out because it's travelling well, or because it's jumped well, or because I've called one or two of the others in the race right, is good. But other than that, I'm struggling.
I think that Justin is right, but I'm sure you all have seen what has been the change in the last 10 years, F1 racing, right? Have you seen it?
I have, and I know how big it is as a betting product.
No, I'm going to change something here. Just see what has been the user experience when you are watching race, what you see today, when you saw 10 years ago. What you see today is exactly everything that the pilot is doing in the cockpits. You see all parameters that is happening in real time to the car. So with that, if you extrapolate that to a live horse race, and you can see for every horse and every jockey how they are, how they're performing, and how you think they are going to be performing in the next 100 meters, maybe there will be markets you cannot imagine today, and that, yes, can be modeling in real time and automatically. Because we will be using all that data to be processed in real time. Today we have the technology, the capacity, the same as in F1 today, they have much more data processing capabilities to produce all that user experience and to produce that new products. So let's not look backwards, again, first horse to fall, etc. Let's look at what really the user could do with all this data we have today, and what can we sell to the user with all that data that is there. How the user will react to that is yet to be seen. But definitely, I'm sure there's a very, very, very large set of opportunities here that we all have to work together to exploit.
But ultimately, the data is going to benefit the operator much more than it's going to benefit the end user.
And the user experience.
Look, so take F1 as your example. I don't know what percentage of betting is done on F1, but it's certainly no bigger now than it was 10 years ago, despite the fact that the user experience is so much enhanced.
But the users enjoy much more.
The user enjoys it much more, but he's not betting on it more. So in terms of a betting product, and that's what we're here to discuss, it hasn't enhanced that betting experience.
I remember being at Victor Chandler with you.
Oh no, don't
back
bring this
in the
back.
day, and sat in a room when we're with certain people are showing us Filipino basketball that's going to be on at 4 a.m, and how everyone in the room was like, no one's going to bet on Filipino basketball.
Except me, I said they would, didn't I?
I'll pretend yes. But that was the point. So it's not a traded product, it's an entertainment product. And I think that's the thing that's the difference here as well. You know, the moment you can see pictures, even if I know nothing about this team, this race, this anything, then I can form an opinion and I can have an enjoyable experience. And I'm absolutely agree, it's not proven, and in exactly the way that Filipino basketball is not proven. But how now, as a result of those conversations, in plays now, 70, 80% of the market for sports, I can't believe that there won't be an uplift. But I've got a vested interest, so I would say that. But one of the things that does concern me that the panel has been saying is about pictures. Because the thing that even Filipino basketball had was quick pictures. And to bet in a sport that turnarounds quickly, like basketball, is important to have quick pictures. Racing, presumably, is even more important. But we have a situation where maybe not all consumers are seeing the pictures in a timely manner. Is that a killer issue here?
I don't know if it's killer, but it's certainly relevant. I mean, currently, most take the domestic UK market, most operators receive their pictures into retail through satellite. And there's a 2, 3, 5, 7 second delay, depending where it's bouncing from. But along with everything else, technology is moving incredibly quickly. So from the racecourse to centre, effectively centre of SIS, it's all fibered. So everything is effectively real time into the hub. We're also now distributing over IP, which is sub-second delivery. It's about a second and can get to sub-second. And we're doing that into all parts of the world. So we've got customers in Sri Lanka who have a better experience in shop, or a quicker experience at least, than customers just down the road in Kensington High Street, because the technology enables it to do it. So I think, yeah, it's incredibly important that there is synchronicity and that people don't get caught out with an experience, you're 7-1, where it's about to take a tumble. It's going to be important. That shouldn't prevent us from innovating now in different types of ways until that technology catches up. Because if you wait forever, you just wait forever.
Do you think that's a problem? Like, can you launch it? I mean, it sounds like you're solving that problem or in the process of solving. But does that have to happen first, or can...
I don't think it has to happen first. I think and look, I'm not, although my job title is Product Director, I haven't invented these products yet. That's the whole point of it. But if we wait until everything is ready before getting into the market, What size will horse racing be then? Let's say that's 5 years away. Well, if horse racing continues its stuttering performance in retail, and if retail declines because of all the tax issues and the FOBT issues that are coming through, and if not all of that business is transferred, we've heard all those kind of things, we could see an immediate bump down over the next 12 months. Who's doing something about that? And that, I think, is the key. Yes, international growth, yes, streaming, incredibly important, but we've already got those things. What's next? And next, I think, is take a step. Don't go the whole hog yet, but find ways to introduce this sort of capability and see what the customer demand is. It doesn't need huge investment at this stage. I mean, it does from people like us, because we're putting the hard yards in on racecourses. But from an operator perspective, there are ways to get involved in this relatively cost effectively and try it out with customers. The Sportsbet example is one where they're not even using live data feeds. They've simply created what I think is a great product idea, and they're putting it into the market.
I actually don't think the picture issue is insurmountable. Like, you have Bet365 and Paddy Power who run a successful in-play horse racing product as it stands, and there's an appetite from customers. And I think customers are a lot more astute now, and they realise that they're not, everything we watch in the streams, we realise we're betting, a couple of seconds behind. I think as long as customers feel they're not being taken advantage of, it becomes less of an issue. And I think the brands have enough trust, the 365 of the world and the Paddy Powers, the customers are going to feel they're not being taken advantage of when they're having a bet. You don't really have that same level of comfort on the exchange.
So key thing, sorry Jacob, just to follow up on 365, absolutely key to them is the customer experience. They don't put a delay on bet acceptance. Most operators, if you didn't know, will apply a 2, 3, 5, 7 second delay on receiving the bet from a customer before they accept it. And that's to protect themselves so that nothing's happening in the meantime. 365 don't do that. They accept instantly because they want the best customer experience possible. And that's part of the reason they're as big as they are.
And there's bundles of margin built in, so you've got more margin for error than you have in some other things.
Yeah, but one of the things that we are forgetting here is that, and we all talk about multi-channel, and we are talking about omni-channel. And I think it's a completely different approach we have to take for the retail and for the online. And by bringing new tools to the retail, we'll probably be able to start using these products. At this moment, the only solution will be SSBTs. There is no doubt that the customers are not going to go over the counter just to place in-play bets on horse racing. But there are innovative solutions that you all know we have in the market today that will allow to get use of these products through SSBTs, and also by using what mobile technologies give us today, so customers can really have individual experiences within the retail. And that probably will then make more sense, and that will bring more closer retail experience to the online experience, but keeping the social actual components of the retail. So I think that as soon as we treat all the channels from the same platform, yes, but they have to have different solutions on how we market this product and how we take that product forward. I think that then, yes, there will be a massive lift in how the perception of the user will be around the in-play horse racing betting.
Peter, are Arena doing anything with the picture timings, or how do they view this? Is it a problem for TPD?
I mean, at the moment, no. I mean, I sort of share the same sentiment that, if you look at in-running bets are now currently being taken on mobiles with, huge volumes, and the delay there is, even worse than watching a stream from your desktop or laptop. I think and also, I remember, so I was involved in Sporting Bet in the early days of in-running when fast data feeds didn't really exist. There were huge discrepancies between, football from various skyboxes, and the money taken was still significant. So I think, it's going to have to adapt, and it will as the product becomes more successful. But, I think from now it's not going to be a limiting factor.
So I've got one more doom and gloom question, which Ian...
I'm not answering anymore.
But it's a serious one, because integrity, and I think Ian kind of placed it, there are new opportunities, as there have been in spot fixing and other things, to manipulate betting markets. Is there anything racing can do, or does it just have to be aware, or what's the panel's view on how racing can adapt to maybe a new world?
From TPD standpoint, we're currently working with the BHA using our data for compliance purposes, so similar to how Sport Radar work on some of the sports. So we're actively involved in that. So that's something we're taking quite seriously.
So what kind of things are they looking at?
Just looking at relative speeds of horses. I mean, it's sort of early days at the moment, but like with anything, when the data starts to exist, you get a lot more granularity within the sport. So you can inherently see more about what's going on.
I'd love to be in an inquiry where Barney Curley was asked why his horse went too fast in the first 2 furlongs. I think it'd be tremendous fun.
Maybe that's how we monetize it. Horse racing.
Definitely be able to sell tickets.
It's very similar. The BHA has taken a very close view on this, as has Horse Racing Ireland, and I'm sure other jurisdictions are doing exactly the same. PMU have a solution. Yes, there's the potential to open up different types of activity. You know, the first ball in the cricket match, all these kind of things. Other sports have dealt with this. It has taken time to really get to grips with integrity and to identify all the issues and options. I think we're in a relatively fortunate position that this is new, and we've been engaged with the BHA, with HRI, and others right from the start. So that none of this is coming as a surprise to people. And as it is monetized, as the products are developed, I'm sure the authorities are going to be keeping a really close eye on what is and isn't out there. Nobody wants to see corruption in sport. It's bad for the sport, it's bad for the betting firms, ultimately it's bad for the customers, and that's the issue.
So do you think there's anything that horse racing can learn from other sports and what they've done? Is there anything?
Well, absolutely I do. If you look at tennis, a great example, probably the easiest sport to fix, if I didn't really want to go match fixing, but 1 against 1. And it's relatively easy to serve a double fault, isn't it? Tennis has cleaned its act up incredibly, but we're still getting high-profile cases or suspicion of activity. Racing, I think, has to be absolutely aware of the opportunities this might bring. And yet, markets like fastest to the first furlong, I can't see happening. I think there's going to have to be a real dialogue with the authorities about what is and isn't acceptable.
I think this is incredibly important for horse racing because tennis doesn't have an integrity perception issue with the general public. Horse racing does. Rightly or wrongly, it does. And I think if we go down the road of giving people an opportunity to corrupt our sport, we have to be really very careful. Now, look,
but let's reverse it, Ian. As Peter said, the granularity of the data can demonstrate and effectively prove if somebody's tugged a horse back or pushed it out too fast beyond its natural speed. These are things that we're getting to grips with now. It's not as simple as sectional timing. This is real time, in that stride, what did the jockey do? And you look at the video and you look at the data and it will tell you that the jockey did or didn't do something.
No, and I agree with that, and I think that the more granular that data becomes, the better it is for the sport. I've got no doubt about that whatsoever. But as operators, I think we've got a duty of care to horse racing as well, not to provide betting opportunities to people that allow them to manipulate what's out there. And I think there is a significant duty of care in us to protect horse racing in that manner.
But I think also that if you have data in real time and you're measuring, and you have all that information available to the betting system and the fraud system, it will be very quickly going to happen exactly what happened in tennis. How do the operators today identify there is fraud going on in a tennis match before anybody else will do? Easy. They start seeing liquidity going to the wrong place. And if you have the right data in real time, I'm sure that we will be providing the tools that horse is going to be suspended. And all markets related are going to be suspended. As soon as we see anything that is changing according to the general patterns on the liquidity and the data we are receiving from that horse in the live race. So there is one fundamental thing here. While we will be providing new products, there will be further investment from operators in creating more tools. And the more investment we receive for that product, the more tools we will create. And the more the operators will be protected and the best user experience will be there. So really we need to crack on this, and then we'll provide the tools to make sure that there is compliance and there is also integrity by using tools that will allow the operators to control it. This moment is the problem. When there is barely no tools, no information in real time, it's completely a nightmare sometimes for an operator to identify when early prices, for example, you have always this with punters, you get early prices, somebody betting there's no liquidity in Betfair, how you know that bet you can take it or not? All right, In play, with you have all this real-time data, it will be very, very possible to identify not only what is the horse that is involved in fraudulent activities, but also what punters know the information ahead, because you will have all the data in real time. It's very important to get this point.
Okay. Audience, do we have any questions for this group?
Up for you, Paul.
Thanks. Nick Rust, British Horse Racing Authority. Fascinated to hear the discussion about development of live betting. Confess to being a skeptic with my own personal view. However, it's very important for our sport that we do examine it. You've talked a lot about what's happened in the past, and I'm interested to hear your views. Other sports have learned from it, and we're starting from a fresh point. Of course, they learned the hard way. The throw-in the West Ham match, was it? After 4 seconds, spot fixing and so on. I know that data can help operators identify liabilities and issues, but actually it goes further than that. The credibility of the sport and the way in which the sport is run and the reasons that the sport take place can be undermined if we allow the wrong opportunities to be offered. I was very glad to hear you say, Paul, that you wouldn't be supporting something that said, that betting should be offered on the fastest furlong. I mean, it's a complete no-no with regards to the overall integrity of the sport. So if we do learn from other sports, but we do and try and press the opportunity, what really do you think can come through, and how can regulators help support it, and what experience is there in Australia that you mentioned around that? I'd be interested to know.
Thanks, Nick. And I know you're a skeptic because we've had this conversation before. 2 parts to the question. Yes, we're starting from almost scratch, and what can we do with integrity that means we don't get into the problems that other sports have faced? Well, I think the opportunity is there to learn absolutely from those other sports and to identify the risk issues as we see them at the moment before these things get into the market properly. At the moment, this is nascent, okay? Not every race course, not every race is being captured in real time. There isn't a consolidated feed of all the data, so it's a bit disparate, and we're just at the cusp of getting to the point where it's all ready. This is where the authorities, yourselves, and the operators, because we're effectively the middleman supplying the raw content to allow people to create opportunities, and it's the operators that do it. I was really encouraged by your optimism earlier about the relationship between racing and the betting operators now. I share your optimism. I've seen it from the other side, and I'm convinced that there's a way forward that is constructive for the sport, but also for the bookmakers. And that, I think, should be on your agenda for these quarterly meetings that you're going to be having. It should be right up there, because this is fundamental to the integrity of the sport. And now I've rambled on, I've forgotten what the second part of the question was, I'm sorry.
I would like to also add to Paul something, and it's about transparency. It is much more tough for a fraudster to commit fraud when he's being transparent with what's going on. It's like a cashier when he's going to steal money from a cash, but he's having a CCTV cam there. Obviously, if you don't have a CCTV cam there, it will be more likely you may have something like that. You don't know. It's a matter of the person, it may be chances. We can put a price on that probably. But if you have full transparency of what's going on in a race, it will be far more difficult for a fraudster to do it and not to be seen doing it. So the more data we have about everything in real time, the much, much better for everything. Regulators, compliance, punters to be more trusting in the product, etc. So I think it's absolutely necessary that, especially in racing, to gain that confidence that the public needs on the racing, and not only horses, greyhounds, for example, it is very, very important that we have that stream of investment that will allow all this technology to start coming into the racing market.
Just on greyhounds, we have trialed in-running greyhounds data. They last about 29 seconds. Even I don't think there are that many betting opportunities in greyhound racing for in-running.
Yeah. Not for the market, but I'm seeing transparency, really.
Any other questions? So I'm going to ask. So I'm just going to ask, just to wrap up then. for the panel's predictions on how large the in-play racing market will be, maybe in 1, 2, 5 years?
I'll start. I'll put a number out there.
Go on.
And the number I'm going to put out there is that the most skeptical, old-school traders that I talk to, their pessimistic view of this is that they believe there's a 10% uplift in horse racing business. I'm cautiously expecting to be in the 25 to 30% range.
As any new product, I think that it's very difficult to guess. And I prefer not to guess, really just to really expect that there will be the actual means and the operators will want to offer new products without expecting much at the start, but really try to change how the users are enjoying horse racing. Then for sure will not go down. So I will be very happy if in 3 years' time we keep the same horse racing we have today, retail and online, by producing new experience for the users. Because the way I see today is that more and more those experienced punter are getting where they want, but the youngers are getting less and less engaged in the horse racing products.
Yeah, well, I think Paul and I have been speaking to the similar operators because, yeah, at the moment, the sort of after the off market is expected to be sort of at least 10%. And I think if you add what in running could potentially do, I think the bullish end, yeah, is up to 30% of the market in, yeah, sort of a 3 to 5 year period.
So remarkably, I don't necessarily disagree. And I think the data side of it is hugely important to the horse racing product as a whole, you know, especially from the integrity perspective. I think the after the off market will get to 10% easily, and I wouldn't be surprised if we extend it to 15 to 20%. I don't think it will help massively grow the overall horse racing betting market, though. I think it will cannibalise a lot of the pre-event market.
Okay. Well, I found that all fascinating. So just like to thank the panelists for a great panel. Really well.